Welcome to our part 2 of Python for Blender. So last time we looked at a bunch of elements that I wanted to introduce. So the idea of this video series is basically to give you an introduction into Blender and how to work it with Python. So how can you do the basic thing? How can you access Blender using Python? And so last time we looked into how to find and open the script editor, print hello Blender, call the Blender API, which ended up being BPY, and then create and delete objects. We did that with cubes and cameras. And last but not least, we did import and export objects. So that was a setup. We didn't finish completely, but I wanted to at least create the basic structure. And today we want to kind of wrap this up a little bit and make sure that we also address a few of the questions that we had from last time. As I mentioned last time, it's always good if you learn something that you have some kind of notepad next to you where you can just write down your questions every time you encounter something, instead of getting distracted every time and starting to Google endlessly. You just write down, oh, this is something I would like to have, this is something I would like to add, this is something I don't understand. And then you address them. And so this is one of the things we want to do. We will also look into Blender for Visual Studio Code. This is really cool, as this was actually part of the question that I asked. And then we wrap this up with the two last points of that. The idea, again, is to give you a basic understanding of how to code in Blender. If you already know Python, this would be relatively easy. If you don't know Python, but you know Blender, this at least gives you an introduction into, okay, this is how it goes, this is how are the first steps. And if you're interested to learn the whole thing, for example, you're welcome then to join us for Python for Blender to learn Python and Blender together as a whole package. But independent of everything, it's important for me that you just see that at the end of the day, there's no crazy mystery in Python coding, independent of which DCC you are. If you're in Maya, if Houdini, Nuke, Blender, and so on. So it's basically the same structure. So if you know how to code in Python, the only thing you need to learn in Blender is how to access this specific API. Okay, so let's dive into Python for Blender. Welcome to my channel. Roll the intro. Hello, my friend. My name is Alexander Richter. I'm a technical director for visual effects, animation, and games, who was fortunate enough to work on projects like Avatar 2, Monsters at Work, and the Amazing World of Gumball at world-renowned companies like Weta Digital, Framestore, and Mackevision. Welcome back. So this means we have our checklist of all the things that we want to do, all the things that we want to dive into our Blender. We already found out all the basic structure, and we had a bunch of questions or notes left that we want to address. So these are the things that I want to address first. I think this is kind of a little bit of a recap of what we did, but also, expanding on the ideas that we had before. So there was a bunch of things that we want to look into. Also, you're welcome if you are part of the chat, if you want to, comment, if you have any questions or anything. This last time it was really cool. We had a lot of people joining and commenting and, helping a little bit with the whole process. I think that was really interesting, makes it more interesting for me. This is also the main idea of the live event streaming, is to kind of have the interaction, not just me, speaking into the void and stuff like that. So you're welcome to let me know if you have any ideas. If, every time I'm stuck a little bit, welcome to add your input and so on. There is a slight delay on YouTube. I think it's like 10 seconds. So don't be surprised if there's a certain reaction time missing for that one as well. Hello. Yeah, everyone, welcome. So yeah, hopefully people will come in slowly. That will take a moment, but yeah, you're welcome to join and watch us live. Okay, so before we continue the list, we actually go into this part, and I prepared something here. We have a bunch of questions that we had last time, and I wanted to address them. Some of them were questions while we were exploring things, and I was like, oh, this is weird. Why is that? Some of them is like, can this be done better? So okay, let's address a few of the questions that I had last time, and I think that makes it important. So again, one of the things I would always recommend is every time you learn something, it's always good to have a goal. So for example, in our case, let's say our goal is the questions for now. So that's our goal. Great. Second, you should, have good material. So, you can do it by yourself, but usually it's always good to have good master classes and so on. Always good to have people you can interact with, can ask questions, you can have feedback. That's always good. And then last but not least is to, ask questions in general. So if while you're learning something, always keep something on the side where you write it down and then take the time to Google that and, or figure it out by trying and error. So that's what I did in the background, and that's what I want to address for today. So, okay, what does the tooltip do? So last time, someone in the chat recommended me to go to the preferences and switch on the Python tools tooltip, and I was originally I was thinking this was the printout when I do an action. So at this moment I was looking for what happens if I throw something in, where do I get this printout, but it ended up being not actually that. So that's something I want to clarify. So we go into edit preferences, and what I'm talking about is the Python tooltips, and if we hover over it, it says show Python references in tooltips, and then under it, that's very important. That's actually a very powerful thing in the Blender UI, is it shows the Python function or variable that we need to call to get this specific thing or manipulate this specific thing. This is super, super powerful. If you're familiar with, for example, Nuke, this is something we have there as well. And so this is something that can help us to simplify our kind of coding aspect. So if we would uncheck this, what we will notice, for example, if we hover about anything now, we don't have the Python tooltip. So this is exactly what the label actually says, Python tooltip. That's exactly what it is. If we check this on, it will add this grayish subline of the Python tooltip itself. So that is the purpose of the tooltip. So basically, if you code in Python in Blender, I would recommend to switch it on, because if you can see, every time you hover about anything, there is a tooltip to explain to you how you can access this specific element. So anything you want to access here, you can see preferences view dot show underscore splash. Okay, if you hover over any particular button, render image here, bpy.ops.render.render, and then in round brackets use underscore viewport true. So it goes into every direction and always explains us how to access certain elements using the tooltip here. And so it's really, really cool. So this is actually was not originally what I thought. I was thinking that is the feedback of my actions, but actually it ended up being as powerful. It actually is the description. And if you're familiar with, for example, Nuke, and let's say we create a write node, and we hover over any of these, the tooltip usually is also the name of the variable. So for example, it's the label says frame, but that is not how Python variable name is. So if we want to actually access the frame kind of variable name, let's say to manipulate it, to change from expression to start at or offset, we would not say frame, we would say frame underscore mode. And that applies for everything else. You can see here, file underscore type, that's the variable name for Python, and under it is the actual tooltip. So it's kind of the other way around compared to that. But The difference is it's not as powerful. If you can see, like I can hover about anything else, it doesn't give me the tooltip. It's actually only related to knobs, which is, you know, I would say like 50%, and also it doesn't give you the full kind of like range of it, which you don't really need, because it actually, you access the node and then you access something inside the node. So it's not the most important thing. But at the end of the day, this is super powerful, because if you look at anything basically and you hover over anything, it allows you to manipulate that. You know, everything that is a button, anything that is an action, a checkbox or anything, it will tell you the Python code equivalent, which means you can integrate that for your startups, you can integrate for your script setups and so on. So super, super powerful. So yeah, this is one of the best checkboxes you can use when you are coding in Blender. Before we dive into Blender deeper, I can see something is luring here. You know, we have something very, very dangerous, and it's the cube. So before we dive into deeper into the Blender and our questions, we first have to do something. Did I crash Blender when I delete the cube? Is it a sin in Blender to delete the cube? Because it looks like it doesn't like it. Okay. I just deleted the cube. I don't know that. I didn't know that would lead to a chain reaction here. Okay, Blender, don't die on me. Yeah, great. So first crash. We have to hail the cube. It's very important. The cube needs to get his sacrifice, else this will end up badly. Very, very important. So yeah, make sure to hail the cube before we can actually dive into continuing working with it. There's a lot of danger, as we noticed. If we don't pray to the cube, it will crash our blenders. Or if we want to script or not, it will destroy everything in our paths. So we have to make sure that we are giving sacrifices here, the amount, you know, before we do anything. So every time you are planning to use Blender, especially if you are planning to script in Blender, always make sure to pray, you know, hail the cube, and then we can move on. Because again, if we don't do that, the cube gods will not be with us, and that's something we want to avoid. It's very important. So yeah. Okay, now that we did that, let's dive in. Okay. Phew. Good. We can go from that one. So, okay. So what was the... So that was the first question. So I was wondering, what is these tooltip thing exactly? It was not the kind of feedback of that. It was more the additional information. Super, super cool. Okay, let's dive to the next question. One of the questions I had, if we drop anything in, we have this drop X and drop Y. So I can, just to show you what I mean with that. So if we drop a cube, hail the cube, you can see here at the bottom, it says drop X 500 and drop Y 1013. And I was not 100% sure what it means. I mean, it seems to be, you know, the coordinates of where you drop it. So this is what it looks like, I think. You know, if you, let's go to layout, I think it's bigger. Oof. I don't really find things since I'm not super familiar with it. I'm always like, oh, where's something? Oh, here it. Okay. I cannot drop it. Okay. See, this is always a little bit different in every software. But yeah, basically, so I was expecting X and Y is basically the screen position. It kind of seems to be that way, but it's not 100% clear. So what I found out is drop X is the X coordinate screen space to place the new object under. So it seems to be this exact information where I position my mouse, which again, at the end of the day, you know, you have then basically two information. One is the location, So it's the coordinates X, Y, and Z, and then one is the X, Y information of the screen. So yeah, it's kind of like redundant, but there are plugins to drop things on certain locations. So you can basically position something there and it will just kind of, add gravity and then drop things. So maybe it's related to that. Still not 100% sure. So if you know exactly what the drop X and Y is particularly for, like again, even if you use it for the screen space, I'm not 100% sure what's the purpose. Yeah, kind of for that particularly. You can type in menus to search things like cube in the add menu. Is it mesh maybe? Probably mesh here. In the menus. Which menu? Shift A. Ooh. Oh, that was the wrong button. We actually prayed to the cube god. Should be fine, but one of the things I noticed, and I'm wondering if you have the same experience. So I have more crashes with Blender, relatively speaking. So I'm wondering if you have the same issue as well. So especially when I would say more in scripting, but we're even now in layout and it still kind of feels like it's going down. We have to go back, guys. There is no other way. There can be... Every time it crashes, we have to pray, and hopefully next time we are worthy. Yeah, this is like the small adjustment period of a different software. Yeah, it should be the latest version. It is the... I know, I think I downloaded like 2 weeks ago. We can obviously check. Is there... Is there no update button? Apparently not. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I saw there is a version 5 beta. But yeah, usually, especially in this kind of situation, I would not use a beta version. Else it's because it's even more unstable. So yeah. Okay, so Shift A. Okay. Yeah, but it just gives me in a certain position. It doesn't give me it to... I cannot drag and drop. So that original plan was that I go in this mode bigger and then I just use the drop X and Y element. So yeah, I have 4.53, so I'm 0.01 behind at the end of the day. So by the way, if you're familiar or not familiar with that, let me quickly give you a background in this. So let me quickly hide myself so you can see actually the screen. So here at the bottom, you can see the version 4.5.3. So what that means, if you are in software development, the 4 is the major version, 1, 2, 3, Windows 10, Windows 11. 5 means is the minor version, which often is just a bigger update, which has a lot of changes. And then the last number, the 3, or the newest is currently 4, is the bug fixes version, usually. So the higher the number, the bigger the changes. So that is usually the reason for the order. So yeah, first major, minor, and bug. So yeah, that is also the expectation. So obviously if the Blender 5 comes out, you expect much more features. So that is where this is coming from. So yeah, if you see something like 4.5.4, it means there's just a few bug fixes that they changed and so on. So okay, that is the idea. Yeah, but if you know more about the drop X and Y, exactly what it exactly means or where it is used, let me know either in the chat or later in the comments, as this is recorded, and so that will also help us to figure that out. But yeah, it doesn't feel like it is significantly important, at least not for now. So we keep that on the back burner. But that is how it feels like. It seems to be related to the screen space position. Yeah, make sure you change our bug fixes. Yes, exactly. But for the stable, reliable version, they also have LTS versions that they support with bug fixes only without adding features for 2 years. Okay. Yeah, this is also something, I was just re-recording a few videos for the Python Advanced Masterclass, and this is also something we talked about. Like, one of the ways you can improve your coding. First thing, if you are on a more advanced level, is to do code reviews, obviously. But one of the ways that we did, for example, at Weta and other companies, is sometimes you release a version, but it is only accessible to the other developers, meaning if you are a developer, you will use it automatically, and like supervisors and leads. So basically, for at least a week, or depending on the studio how long, basically there is a version that is used by everyone in the lead position as a normal software. So for example, the newest plugin everyone uses already, but not the typical artist. And so for like a week, 2, 3, 4 weeks, everyone can still chime in and notice something is broken before it will be released to the animators and the modelers. And that's also a really good way to approach things like that. Okay, let's continue the questionnaire. So what is season UID? This is also something we had last time. If we throw in something, one of the things we see here is the season UID, and this is also kind of like set in stone to some degree. And so yeah, we have the season UID, and it's usually an integer, like for example 118 or 116 in this case. So a session-wide unique identifier, let me just dive into the original. It's the operators. Is it this one? Oh, yeah. A session-wide unique identifier for the data block that remains the same across renames and internal reallocations, unhinged when reloading the file. So one of the things I always didn't like about these kind of documentations is always it's so vague, it's very abstract. One of my favorite things about software like my UI user interface and so on is that they actually give you examples. So if we, for example, let's pick up a Maya ls command. So what I like about it generally is it looks kind of old, the formatting and stuff. But with the examples and stuff, there a lot of times they can basically kind of deepen the understanding a little bit more of how the things work. They have multiple levels of explanation. I think always this is a great way to approach this, where I feel like something like this can be still, I read it, I still don't know. So that is also something I want to encourage you. Generally become good at reading this as much as possible. Don't just be in forums. This is very, very helpful if you become someone who's good in reading this. Documentation stuff, it is key element to anything, but it can be still confusing if you read something like this and it's like, okay, it's about a unique identifier, versus the name and so on, but not always is it like, clear what that means. So just be aware that this is very kind of like can be confusing. So it's not always written, for the user in mind. Oftentimes it's, kind of developer who are very kind of focused already, and they don't write it particularly for people who understand exactly the details. So this can be sometimes super confusing. Would be happy to have a little bit more clear description sometimes, but that's what we get. Blender has its own stack exchange if you're interested. Sure, if you have like a link or something, let me know. I'm happy to do. Blender and Unreal has this API list, not much context there. Yes, yeah. Honestly, last time when we did that, I also felt a little bit stuck with this. I find something like Maya, even though it's a little bit old, it's still kind of, it works. It's useful. Something like Nuke API is fine. Houdini API, similar level. I think the Blender API so far is slightly disappointing, I would say. So would be nice if it would be a little bit less, like a little bit more. As you said, I think context is exactly what is missing a little bit here sometimes. It feels very technical, like basically probably generated API from the code itself. So yeah, a little bit missing on that front. Okay, so again, I wouldn't say particularly this is 100% clear, but we have an idea what that means. And again, a lot of these times, and I think that's very important, needs context for ourselves. So the moment we work with this, it is oftentimes helpful for just to understand, okay, this is where this is going, and then when we work with it over time, we figure that out. So I'm pretty sure over time we get a sense for all this kind of environments the moment we get deeper into certain aspects. So, but at least we know the basics of it. You cannot post links on YouTube chats. I'm wondering if there's like a trick where you can you post a part of the link or something? Actually, really, you can't. Let me. Oh, really? I didn't know that. Let me blend. Let me try. Is that only you, me? I can. Is it? Or do you see my link, or is it just me? Or interesting. Maybe there's a setting for that. I didn't know there's maybe something. Let me check if there is. Interesting. I think it's probably avoiding like spam or something like that. But okay, yeah. If you maybe you can give me the Google words that I can look for. That would be also an alternative. So what can I Google to get this as the first page? I think that would be, yeah, it's kind of weird. Maybe I have to double check if there is a setting I can add that. Google Blender Stack Exchange. Okay, let's do that. And then we get here. Clove filter. Okay, interesting. Oh yeah, there was categories. So there's a Python category. Nice. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I think I probably get by accident if I would Google certain cat information like, hey, top menu or something like that, probably get to this. I didn't know Stack Exchange. I know Stack Overflow for coding. So, but yeah, there's a bunch that sound very, very similar. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I think you probably. I know Google is less reliable nowadays because of the way algorithm searches. But usually, if you search for certain keywords, you will get to this and certain forums or online. So yeah, but nice to see that there's a dedicated place out there. Okay, let's continue. So what are operators? So one of the things that we noticed, a lot of the code that we used had operators in them, bpy.ops. So that's why I wanted to know what operators is. There's actually a whole explanation page for operators. So operators are the main abstraction in Blender to execute functions with additional functionality and input settings. If a shortcut or a push button is pressed, usually that calls an operator. Gizmos, tools, scripts, and such of often call operators too. The operator system provides features like saving the current data state for undo push after the operator executes successfully. It allows us users to repeat their operation easily with different inputs. So yeah, that is also something, because we constantly had ops in our code. I wanted to know this one. So again, these are not kind of important question. That's why we didn't address them during our last session, but they're good to know in the basic understanding. But we had one question that was pretty important: how to scroll horizontal in the script editor in Blender. So we had this big problem. If, for example, we copy this code, and obviously we want to have a readable size, and then suddenly we were confronted by this, very unfriendly way of coding, not particularly easy to see. And we had the horizontal, but we didn't had we had the vertical, but we didn't have the horizontal scroll bar. And so yeah, I was wondering, is there like an option? I just also saw someone saying that recently. Oh yeah, there is no horizontal scroll bar, but I think you can use the middle mouse button and click drag it. Yes, exactly. That is the solution. So what we found out is, okay, so there is no horizontal bar. If you know a horizontal bar, let me know. I could not find it. I tried preferences, anything, which is weird. It feels like there should be one, and maybe at least you can, untoggle it, but doesn't seem to be. So that is what it is. But the first thing that is very practical is this one that we found out actually last time. We can do view and we can do word wrap. And that can obviously, also be an option to keep things on, readable terms. So that is also fine. But yeah, obviously, depending on your layouting, could be a little bit unpractical. And then the final solution, and that's basically the only real solution, is middle mouse, as already said before. So we press middle mouse. Whoop, and then just move the mouse. So we press the middle mouse button and then we can just move around. And if we want up and down, yeah, scrolling up and down. So yeah, so that is the way that we can do that. Nothing crazy, but that was something like, besides obviously I can do also with the keyboard, right and left. That would be an option, but I was like, yeah, why I cannot like just see the rest of the code, especially, I don't want my code to be, microfilm. So yeah, so that's the solution. Kind of strange, but yeah, this is something I would definitely put on a developer blog. By the way, and here's also a comment about AI, especially things like Gemini. So I was asking Google about this, and Gemini says control mouse wheel, which is not true. Control mouse wheel is zoom in and zoom out. So yeah, and that is the biggest problem. There is so much misinformation when it comes to AI and stuff like that. So just be very, very careful. Highly not recommended. I would use it, as a side version to Google, but not as a, main information source. It's just such an unreliable source. And yeah, you just mislearn a lot of things. Yeah, just horrible. It's really weird why it happens a lot. Like some of it is valid, some of it is not valid, but I mean, honestly, how is it like, even a broken clock, shows the time twice a day correctly. So that's a little bit, it's just bad. So yeah, that's not good. So yeah, be careful with ChatGPTs and Geminis and so on when it comes to things like that. The best way to approach it, try things out, look at things as we did, and then when you feel like you get, block, then start to Google. You can also use AI to help you, but double, triple test everything before you believe anything they say. Okay, another thing, we had something that was super strange. So if we do double click, we can basically select the whole line, which is the normal way to do. But if we do that in Blender, it doesn't do that. So we can do double click, quadruple click, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't do that. And so you probably know with Control A, we can select everything, but with Control Shift A, we select the line. So that's how to do it. Slightly strange also because it will, jump to the end of the line, which is not particularly optimal, but that's how it works. So yeah, so if you want to select the line, it's Control Shift A. And if you want to select everything, it's Control A. So that's the thing. Again, one small thing that every editor on this planet has, even if you go here, Visual Studio Code, very normal. So it's a very strange thing. That is always a problem where I feel like the editors, they could have, could be a little bit more unified. Let's double check. Even the Nuke editor has it. Double click. I have things selected. So yeah, very, very normal. Not in Blender scripting. Don't know why. It's kind of strange, but that's how it works. Okay, this is also something I would put on the developer side. So then we had this command when we were using, the Alembic export and import. We had this just a printout that I saw. I was like, okay. Again, side note, not important at that moment, but I want side note. So there we have this bpy.context.space_data.params.filename and then cube3.abc. So what it basically means, this is we fill a certain variable with information. So for example, when we open the Alembic exporter importer, it will give us already a filled file name. For example, we go to file. And then let's say we want to do an export Alembic. By the way, if we hover again, we get even this information. So if we want to execute this part, we do bpy.ops.wm.alembic_export round brackets, and then we will have the execution of that. Obviously, in this case, because we do an export, we need a file name. But overall, we already know how to execute this button, which is like incredible. So basically what it does, it fills this information here at the bottom. This is what it does. So nothing crazy. And if we hover over it, it like you can see even params.filename, for example. So it kind of is very similar, not exactly the same, but very, very similar. And even for each button, we get the Python code, which is really cool. Super powerful. Again, information is probably the hardest thing when it comes to coding in a DCC, and it makes it much, much, much easier here. Gemini says, if you think that's strange, don't look what Blender was before 2.0. Yes, I mean, again, I was recently, I jumped from, so first thing, I jumped from Premiere to DaVinci Resolve, which I think, with a few small caveats, I think DaVinci Resolve is at least as good, maybe even better than Premiere for editing. It has a little bit different style, but overall, I think it's a great software overall. Then at the same time, I jumped from Photoshop to Affinity, and Affinity had this big thing where at the end of October they released the Affinity Studio for free with all the thing merged, pixel vertices and so on. And I barely could even start the software. And when I started and I opened a PSD file, the PSD file was broken. When I saved it as JPEG, it was 4 times bigger than if I saved it in Photoshop. So far, like, Affinity Studio's ass. Like, it's really bad. And I think it's, and I read this comment, someone in a forum said, like, welcome to free software. And I think that is a little bit the problem with Blender and Affinity Studio and all the other free software. There is a certain standards that you're used in Photoshop and Maya and whatever that are just sometimes not there because of time, money constraints, development constraints, and so on. So that can be a little bit challenging. Sometimes I'm wondering why, because it's not a big deal, and you need it more and more often than you think of. But at the end of the day, this is kind of, I think, a little bit of a common thing that like we always encounter a little bit. So yeah, we have to deal it when we work with Blender. Free software, powerful, and also, as far as I see, like really strong on the research. A lot of the stuff comes very, very fast. But as I see, for example, so far in my experience, it tends to crash as often when I work with Houdini. So I think Houdini was the other one where, especially when it comes to scripting, I had a lot of random crashes where, yeah, so far I also just random crashes. That's why we have our shrine, because we need to avoid the important part here. You cannot copy paste when mouse is outside scripting editor, as Blender has mouse hover context for shortcuts. Okay. Luciano, welcome. In this particular case, Blender is not like other software. A lot of things in Blender is missing because it's free, but other things are purely ideological and not monetary reasons. Yes, of course. Like, I mean, that is one of the things I love, and that's something, for example, I also implement when I do my Open Source Pipeline Plex, which I will be working next year on version 2, is I want it to be what I believe is the best what it can be. And that also means, like, one of the things that I approach it is I want to build it as a 90% pipeline, meaning I will not cover 100% of everything that you usually encounter in pipelines, but I will make it easy, accessible, flexible, and so on. So I will not make it, this monster of shot grid where it can do everything, but at the same time, it can do 90% and it's still accessible, easy to modify, easy to read, and so on. So I think in general, there's nothing bad with ideology, but at the same time, I don't think it's, an excuse to remove certain standards, certain behaviors, like, simple double click or something to select a line, which is a very, very normal thing. So I think there is this like fine line where if you integrate a script editor, I will expect that you will have the normal thing. Or, I always wondered why people not just reach out to the Sublime Text guy and just say, hey, let's integrate Sublime Text in Blender or something, Could be also a way. Maybe there is a collaboration going on here. That would be really cool. Because at the end of the day, all DCC script editor are not good. Some are a little bit better, some are worse. It really depends. But every one of them has specific pro and cons that, yeah, just they're never as good as Sublime Text. They're never as good as Visual Studio Code. So you end up kind of like using them more for testing. Like, the main reason that I would use this script editor is basically when I'm developing, I'm testing few small things, but overall, everything I would do is always in this one, or Sublime Text. So it's not the most common thing at the end of the day. Blender has had the philosophy of doing things differently for the sake of it since the beginning, because it was open source and not copy anything standards were doing, but that changed over time. Yeah, again, I think if you committed yourself to add a certain thing, like a script editor, then you have to commit to add all the expected script editor features. You don't have to become, in this case, most people will not expect the Blender script editor to be a Visual Studio Code or something, but you should be, the most common things. I think it's just normal. At the end of the day, again, like, just integrate a free script editor and ask the person who's doing that to put it in, and that's it. Yeah, I like the left click on the right mouse button. Blender used to use right click as default. I will leave it there. Yeah, like there's definitely a few things I have to get adjusted to when I will, work deeper on the Python for Blender masterclass. These are things that I need to dive into deeper. But that same thing happened to me in, when I opened Nuke. I had to get into the specifics, how to do things, how to dive into a node, how to dive into a sub node, like a mother node, like if it has like a gizmo node, basically. Same thing for Maya, Maya has different things. So yeah, it can be a little bit challenging sometimes to adjust to that software. But again, that's not the key aspect always, especially not for if you're on the scripting side. If you're on the supporting side, your main focus is about how do I support other people, meaning I need to understand the basics of Blender in this case, and then I need to understand how can I manipulate Blender using Python. Okay, so last question that I had from our last session, part 1, was, can we move the text editor signal from the pop-up console to the dockable console? So this was something I found, again, not super important, but you remember the toggle system console, which is this one, and I always dislike that it is not integrated. Can I saw for something. Oh, okay, that was a Windows thing. I always, why not? Even in Houdini, you can have the output, or you can have the shell, which is dockable. So I always wondered why this is not. So I was looking into that, and apparently you cannot dock the system console. It is strongly advisable to get a second or even third monitor for a 3D program such as Blender. So if you know more, either in the chat or later in the comments, let us know. If there's a way to do that, happy to try, but it seems to be this it's not the most important thing, honestly. We can deal with it, but yeah, we are questioning everything here, and that is also the coolest part in the beginning. In the beginning, you should question more. When you are in the midst of it, when you're working on it, you will start to be a little bit more focused, and you will not look into things. You have your workflow, so it makes the most sense to question everything in the beginning. And also for me, as working on Python for Blender Masterclass, I question everything because I want to deliver for you the most information and the best insights into that part. But there is actually a solution, and that is something we can look into next, because now we answered that question as well. Blender has the hotkeys / menus to select on the select tab in the text editor. Yeah. So let's dive into that one. So what we have done, this is smaller. Nope. This one. Okay. So what we can do is, and that's a little bit of transition from our last question, is of the output. We can actually connect our Blender console to our script editor. For example, in my case, Visual Studio Code. So there is first one before, if you're interested in that, we just do a quick dive into that. We don't dive too deeply into that, but I just want to show you because this was a question that I had. And this is also something we also looked when we, for example, do Python for Maya. It's like, hey, is there a plugin to connect my Visual Studio Code or Sublime Text to Python for Maya, or Python using Maya, and just execute things, not in the Maya script editor, but in Visual Studio Code, for example. So there is a plugin called Blender Development. I can just install it. And then if you press Ctrl-Shift-P, you can, for example, do certain things. One of the things you have to do first is start Blender. So we, in this case, we just type, let's say, Blender, and we can see here, there's a start. And then we start basically a new version of Blender, you can see here, in the console of Visual Studio Code. That allows us to run Blender similar to this console, basically, but it is in Visual Studio Code. And that you know, can be beneficial, you know, that obviously besides having our output in here, the second benefit is obviously we can use code and then start elements or execute elements in Visual Studio Code, and it will be executed in Blender, for example. So that is the thing. This is also like live add-on starting. Add-on should be running. That would be the thing, but you know, that doesn't. Okay, so I just redid it. It missed the second command where I picked the version. So we are starting our Blender in the background. Running. 4.3, 4.5.3 LTS. And this is a version. And so what we can do now, hopefully this works. We can do Control-Shift-P again, and then we can, for example, again, if we type in Blender, we can, for example, have a script. In this case, we import BPY. Let's say we create, was it camera, I think? Yeah, we create a camera, and then we print Blender Visual Studio Code. Let's see if it works. So Blender run script. Did it? Yep. Let's do it again, just to be sure. Camera 1, let's do again, just to be sure. Run script, camera 2. Yeah, and then we also have the output here, as this is our new output window. What happens if I put the output window? What do I get? I don't think I get one. Yeah. Let's have update our goal also at the bottom. So yeah, that is the cool part how we can do it. The only thing you really need here is to install the plugin or package, or I think this one's plugin. I think package is called in Sublime. And then you can basically, you have to run Blender through this console, so through Visual Studio Code, and then you can just do your coding here, and you know, you don't have to use the script editor. Obviously things like, you know, if you still want information like this, you will do here, copy this part and then throw it in. As the one suggestion was, you should have, generally speaking, in 3D but also in coding, at least 2 monitors. One for Blender, one for your script editor, and maybe a small third one for Google. That is the thing. But yeah, that is another way how can we approach this. This also allows us to, you know, avoid certain things that we don't want to have. So if we want to have these independently, here we have to find the right output. Here we have the, you know, execute this, Blender Visual Studio Code, and yeah, that is a one way we can access this. Yeah, not the dockable solution, but this is a cool alternative to that one particular way of doing it. That plugin was made by one. Okay, that was the other one. Yeah, so that was the questions that we had. So that was the important part for me to address also, and also show you a little bit about that. So final part I want to do is let's finish. So first thing, check. So the last pieces that we want to do is this too. let's start with the save and load file. I think that's even simpler before we dive into the other one. So we did import export. Now we can do this, save and load. Let's update our goal. Always, don't have to write it down for yourself, but in general, it's always good if you do anything, it's always good to have like a goal in mind. So what I'm trying to achieve now. So let's dive into. So in this case, first thing, let's kill our extra Blender version. I don't need two versions. We don't want to force. Okay, so the first way that I would approach this, again, so there's our goal. Okay, we write a tool that deals with saving and loading. Let's say at the end of our process, our tool has to save the current file. Now, maybe it has to save a certain file, a new file. So let's say we have a bunch of stuff happening. Okay, so now we want to save. So how do we do that? The first thing that I would approach this is basically do it manually. And as we do have the Python tooltips, we should approach this as well like this. Okay, we save cube 1 save. There's something I noticed that when I press the export import save as button, it doesn't react the first time. It's like a bug. I think it is a bug actually. Okay, we get again the file name thing, which is more related to the UI. So in this particular case, it is main file. Yeah, let's try it out, see what happens, because the save seems to be the same thing. bpy.ops wm. Okay, be cool to copy this. Saved underscore as main file. Sometimes strange naming. Okay. So if we would, we can try to execute this, see what happens. Kind of works. Does it mean if I would delete a bunch of stuff, is it the same as save? Let's try it out. So I just overwritten it. Let's open a new scene. Okay. Oh my god. That's not what I wanted. General. Okay. And then let's open the cube 1. Yeah. Okay. So if it seems to be from my first understanding that even because the save button is the save underscore main file, but even if I would say save as main file and I don't have a path, then it will seems to be automatically save it, oversave the current file basically, so it doesn't really need it. Okay. So let's try it. So what we do, the approach that we do is basically we're just trying to manually try and error and see how it works. Let's do cube 2. This is the, what is the file format? Was it blend? Blend. Okay, so let's try this one. So what we do is basically say file name. It could, I'm pretty sure it's actually file name. It's very likely, but yeah, both is fine. So, not as fine. Okay. Okay, did that work? Let's go out of the full screen. Didn't work. Trace back. Yeah, so the question is this related to the UI or is this related to the action, which I don't know. So we have to test it out. So it didn't really help us here. So let's say save file in the API. Ooh. Yeah, as we noticed, this is the save main. This is exactly what we, oof. Okay. File path. Oh, I did file name. That was the difference. Okay. So file path and oh, also I should use the correct file path. That would be good. Okay, let's try again. That seems to work. Let's open the Blender. Here it is. Awesome. Yeah, that's how it is. You know, obviously you can do this much faster, but honestly, the way approaching this like step-by-step process, especially in the beginning, because later we will be fast. We will just, we don't even think, we will just like Google and jump to conclusions and so on. Especially in the beginning, this approach of, you know, snailing our way into the solution, as honestly, is actually pretty good because it allows us to, you know, play around. And I think one of the best ways to learn any skill, Python, Blender, 3D, is to take the time to look at things. So just by doing this, I learned a lot about Blender itself. I learned a lot about you know, certain tooltips and so on. So, and I also learned what's not working. You know, so it's not always file name, for example. So, but at the end of the day, it worked. So even though it's maybe slower than just Google it and find the perfect solution, this is still pretty valid way because yeah. So I think especially when you are in a learning path, you know, the first few hours in Python for Blender, I think this is the best approach you can do. Don't just, you know, go to the final finish line. Just play things out. Try to logically build a conclusion, and yeah, I think that is just more successful and will over time is like an investment. It will give you a much better feedback and success. So yeah, that's it. We found out, and if we need more information, obviously we can just look here and do certain things with that. If we need to hide props region, check existing, check existing already. Yeah. So we don't overwrite, for example, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's it. So we kind of combine it with our own understanding, the tooltip, and the API, and we found what we wanted to know, and that's what we want. And then the last piece, obviously, is the lot, or it's called open main file. Okay. Open main file. I think there should be multiple cubes if I saved it correctly. Let's try again. Oof. But it is the cube one. So we opened correctly. Also the script editor information changed to what we saved. It's interesting. For example, one of the things I didn't know, it saved the information of the script editor in the file itself. This is something that also happens in Houdini. What is super dangerous in Houdini, I'm not sure if this is the case here, is that it also executes the information on opening, which is super dangerous. So let's try this out to see if that is true as well. Let's open this one. Okay, it saved this. Doesn't seem to be. Okay, just open this one. So let's open cube 1 and see if it executes my printout, because I left the printout here. Let's see the output window. It didn't. Good. Because this is something maybe unique to Houdini will, if you have code in your script editor saved inside the file, if you open the file, the code will be executed like a callback, basically. So this is super, super dangerous. It doesn't seem to be the case for that. So yeah, that's good to know. But yeah, that's it. Nothing crazy. We open main file, save as or save main file, and then we have a file path, and that's it. Super, super straightforward. So yeah, no kind of complex environment we have to deal with, and this is checked. Okay, final thing for today: get, set, and yeah, if we do get and set, we can also copy object attributes to one another. Though this is the final thing for today. Let's dive into that one. Let's get, set, and copy attributes. Boom. Updated goal. And yeah, before we dive into, let me quickly do a quick 30 seconds break. Welcome to our short mid-episode coffee break. If you love the content and would like to have a successful career in the film or games industry yourself, check out my website. There you can find helpful articles, masterclasses, and coaching opportunities that helped dozens of my students to bring their profession to the next level, and share the podcast with cool people you know. Let's continue with the episode. Okay. So we have our cubes. Let's say, yeah. I know, Bela, you said I should find cooler objects, but yeah, I think for now cubes. But yeah, I will definitely also for my masterclass, I will definitely use a little bit cooler things. This is also I always recommend to anyone doing anything for showreel, showing your code or something. Never ever use cubes, spheres, or basic meshes for your tools, for your presentation, for your showreel. Even if it's just, a test scene, always use something production ready, cars, cities, whatever. It just cooler. In this case, we are literally in a kind of a research environment, so it's not the biggest deal. But yeah, I would highly recommend to do something like that at the end of the day. Okay, so our goal is to get information first, then to override the information second, and then third, maybe move a certain object to another place. So that's important. Okay, so let's start with this one. How do we, let's stay at location. How do we access certain location information? Let's do something 4.5, is it meter? Okay. And we can see it here, actually. It's really straightforward. If I hover over the properties of the transform, it actually says object.location, but under it, it actually says how to get this specific information. bpy.data.objects. And then it seems to be objects is just a collection of all the objects in the scene. And then we use the string to access a certain name. So this is the cube underscore 001. Which maybe, again, season UID, maybe there's this reliability with that, because obviously name can change. And then location 0, because location 0, location 1, and location 2. Yeah. Probably better if it would be location XYZ, but it stays in the Python structure. Okay, let's do that. PBY data. Wow, this is like so uncanny different to what I'm used to, but it's actually pretty cool. Actually, I like this menu overall. The idea is pretty neat. Okay, so where is it here? py data objects. And then it's a string called cube._001. And then it is location. And we want 0. Let's print this out. And let's see what we get. Yes. See, that's what I mean. Ugh. Oh. Why did that out? No. Okay, we have to go back. Ah. Slightly unstable, I would say, so far. I'm not sure how it is in production, because sometimes certain things can trigger it. So I'm not sure if it's a common thing. Let me know if you how stable it is usually for your workflow. Yeah, because I know a few people of you here are, you know, using Blender maybe more regularly. But so far, we end up in the church very, very often. It's not good, I would say. Okay. Let me, while we all praying, let me set it up again in the background. Let's dive back in. Okay, and BPY dot, and yeah, you can just hover your mouse. Oh, I want to say you can just hover your mouse while you type. Nope, it will trigger the environment here. So nope, you can't. Wait a minute. Which one is which? Here it is. Okay, so it's again data objects. And then we have our cube._001 location, and then 0. So yeah, let's hope our prayers are heard this time. It's executed, but I need the console to see it. And it's there. Nice. So that's it, you know? And that means whatever we want, we can get via this information. So that's what I mean, you know? Now I have to go into the terminal. Like if I want to have this always on top, I have to go in the terminal, find this setting. That's ridiculous. So else I would need to, usually there should be like a defaults. What's the okay, whatever. So meaning if we want, for example, you know, scale, we just say scale, and boom, bada bim, we get our scale. And so with this command, you know, this is the information that we need, the object name, and this is the attribute name that we get. And you know, if you don't know it, you can just hover over it, and then you get the information that you want. G up underscore axis, track axis, and so on and so forth. So even if we dive into things like Here, visibility, for example, we get dot height underscore select and so on and so forth. So yeah, this is really cool. So this allows us to, you know, get every attribute that we want, and that's it basically. Okay, so now that we do know how to get attribute, let's dive into the second part. Let's set it. So far, Blender has the most crashes related to Python scripting from the DCs that I tried. Yes, I would so far agree. I'm not sure it's only Python related. If it is, okay, then, I mean, obviously we are mostly Python, but I was actually in the layout when it crashed last time before, so I'm not sure if it's only Python related, but yeah, Houdini was slightly unstable, especially when it comes to Python. Expressions especially was very unstable. 3ds Max was relatively unstable. Pretty stable were generally Nuke and Maya when it comes to scripting and Python. So that was the two things. But yeah, so far this is definitely the biggest contender so far. Okay, so we want to set things. I mean, it's a variable. In this case, it's an item in a list. So let's just define it. How about we just say equals to? Let's see if that works. Yep, equals to. Equals to 2. Yep. Nice. And that's how we set it. So we just take access to variable and just override it. Super straightforward. And last but not least, we want our cube, normal cube, in our cube 1. So cube underscore 001 is this. Let's say like this. And then the cube is just this. So we put our information inside our variables, and what we want is location 0 equals cube underscore. Also autocomplete would be nice. Just notice location 0. So the current value of location X is 0, and the current value of location X in cube 001 is 2. Let's see if it works. This should be jumping from here to here. Yeah, obviously not exactly jumping from here to here because we only changed the X. So yeah, obviously only on the X. So it jumps at least to the location. We would need to change Y and Z as well to get it there. But we're close enough. But yeah, we can see here, you know, kaboom. And that's it. We copied our attribute, and we can do it obviously for all the information, you know, 1, 2, and 2. And now this should jump from here to here. Let's try again. Ba-ba-da-boom. And it is. Nice. This is how straightforward it is. So yeah, honestly, overall, I think besides the crashes and, you know, let's say the code is slightly long if you throw in something. I don't think this is a very well-defined, you know, length. This is a little bit too long. I was thinking of making an episode maybe about the length of and how we can optimize this. Like, this is not great length. So the length of this call is a little bit long and unnecessary. I would definitely kill a bunch of it. Maybe I make a part 3 talking about optimization and wishful thinking and stuff like that. But yeah, this is but the rest, besides the length of the code and some complexities, overall Blender in itself is very like favorable to Python users. It you know, it gives you the tooltips, and which is like I would say 80% of your problems in any DCC, from Maya to Nuke, is basically figuring things out. And Nuke at least gives you tooltips for knobs, but it doesn't give you tooltips for other things. Maya doesn't give you tooltips at all. So this is probably the most kind of developer friendly environment if you take away the length of the expressions of the calls, and if you take away the crashiness far. Overall, if I'm like, if you look at how fast we went through the basic stuff, if you have an understanding of Python, let's say you are Python for Maya before, was really pretty straightforward, and I don't think super crazy. So I think this is really cool, and overall I'm super happy how this went. And I think Python in Blender is a very powerful thing, and Blender actually supports it well. The question obviously arises is like how stable it is, how balanced it is at the end of the day, and when it starts to do on the details, how Blender reacts and stuff. So that is something we will figure out in the next months when I'm working on the Python for Blender masterclass. But overall, I think so far I have a good impression of what Blender is and how it works with Python, and it's very positively overall, with a few quality of life updates. I think this could be fantastic overall. Marcel, because I was trying to rig modular characters for Unreal, I created a script to merge / separate by vertex groups, creating vertex groups for them merged. Been a while. Yes. So, yeah. So basically, let's dive in our list. We completed this one actually much easier than I was thinking we would do. And then what is basically left to do for us? And there is only one thing we are left to do, and that is joining our Python for Blender masterclass. I'm just joking. But if you're interested, if you are especially, if you are a Python beginner, maybe you are someone who works in Blender, you would love to find automation in Blender, you're welcome to join us. We currently have everything on discount, and actually everyone who joins the stream, just use Blender Friend and you get 100 euro off of the current price. So we will do our first cohort in January, the 12th of January, 2026 will be the first cohort ever Blender. And you will learn how to do that. The first 5 weeks will be about Python itself. So if we dive into that one, if you're interested, we do the first 5 weeks learning Python, which is really cool because whatever you learn now, you can always use in Maya, in Houdini, in Nuke, in 3ds Max, and in Blender. And then the last 3 weeks, we will learn how to approach this. So what we did, the part 1 and part 2 will be on week 6, but we will dive deeper, how to use startups, how to use UI, PySide, and so on. And then week 9 and 10, you will create your own Blender application. And this will be supported by a weekly live Q&A. You will have every week you have an assignment. You will have every week you have a personalized feedback where I will give you feedback on your assignment, basically. So it's not just learning for yourself. So you can see here our Python for Blender. So it's alexanderrichter.td.com/python-blender. And yeah, so the first 5 weeks we do Python, then we do Blender, and then you have to build the application and then all the things. And we have a Discord group also. So it's not just you alone. You can ask questions in there and so on. And you get a certificate when you finish that. And yeah, it's always a great way to approach this. And since this is our first cohort, it's already discounted. But if you use Blender Friend and you're part of the stream, basically, you get even 100 off, which means at the end of the day, for the first cohort, you will get it for 595 euros, which is a great price, I think, for a 10 weeks cohort with live Q&A, feedback, and so on. So yeah, would be happy to have you. Again, this is on YouTube for free, so feel free to, just learn on that. But if you want to dive deeper into Python, really dive into the course and understand how to automate and work in Blender using Python, I think that would be the way. We have really cool students so far from all over the industry, Industrial Light and Magic and DNEC and so on, so Pixar. And so we are always trying to, keep the standard high. And in the future, we always try to continue this stream. So we will take a 1 month break, but then we will come back on the 18th of December. And from that on, we will do a weekly stream on Thursday. So every Thursday, starting on the 18th of December, you can see here we already prepared a bunch of streams. We will do a stream, and it will be about visual effects, animation, and games, technical directors, Python. We also want to do something about pipelines. We'll look into Plex. So different levels. We will do the TD meetup every month as well. And we will do this for sure for at least until April. So this is a kind of a big test where we try out and see. So we will do starting 18th of December for every Thursday, until April, every week, and see how it goes. So far, I enjoyed it. I'm thanking everyone who's joining always. This is a big part of why I enjoy this part, is your comments and your, being here. So yeah, we will take a break for 1 month. I'm working on, one of the ways is I'm working on Blender, but I also working on a job application course. And then we come back, and then you will see us every Thursday. So you're welcome to join us every Thursday, starting next month. And then, you can either join us every week on Thursday, same time, or join us for certain topics. So on the 18th, we will have job application reviews. So feel free to submit also there's a form you can submit your job application. We give you feedback on that one. On the 25th, 1 day after Christmas, we will do Financial Healthy for the first time, talk about finances and stuff. We do have a New Year stream. Happy New Year 2026. We will have our scripting for artists in 3ds Max, a kind of a follow-up. We already had one, but we need to do another one since there's a few changes that are very important after 2020. And then this is also kind of a follow-up, because in Max 2025, they changed the menu. So we have that. So we will jump around between different topics, keep it interesting, because I cover a variety of DCCs. I'm doing Python for Maya, Python for Nuke, Python for Max, Python for Houdini, and now Python for Blender. And next year, maybe Python for Unreal. We have also look into Python for ShotGrid. This will be coming next year. Python for applications, Python Advanced we're doing at the moment already. So if there's anything you're interested in, let me know. I'm happy to look into that one. This is a weekly stream from next month on, and so we are always happy to do the stream as much as interesting as possible. So we welcome you to have you, because this is also one of the parts that I enjoy personally the most. I like to do this. This is also gives me opportunity to experiment with new content, and create free content. Help me also to get inspired for our master classes as well. So it's a really cool opportunity, and a big part of that is not me just talking into the void, but having you guys here, interacting with me, giving me help, asking questions, whatever is important. So feel free to join us, and that will be it from my side. So basically, again, if you're interested, feel free to join our Python for Blender, and if you use the code BlenderFriend, you will get even 100 off until the end of the year for our cohort on the 12th of January 2026. And that basically checks everything. And if we look at our goals, we achieved everything we wanted to do. That's fantastic. And again, this is a big setup. So if you think about what we learned, we basically, if we open Blender, we know where to script, we know how to get certain information, we know how to get information about certain attributes, we know how to move the attributes around if we know how to do Python, basic Python stuff. We know how to do save and load and import and export. That already covers a lot of things that you use in most scripts. This is a great kind of setup. So if you understand this far and you have Python knowledge, you already can write very simple scripts for sure. If you find this interesting and curious, but you maybe lack the knowledge in Python language in itself, but you kind of understand the principles, I think that's already cool. And then, for example, something like this would be perfect for joining our Python for Blender. Then you will basically learn Python for the first 5 weeks, all the basics of grammar, vocabulary, and whatever. And then we dive deeper into how to use Python in Blender specifically. And then you create your own application, basically. So that would be like a really cool way to approach this. Luciano, I did the Python Advanced and it's an amazing course. I strongly suggest all of them. Thank you very much. Yes, like, yeah, we have very good feedback so far. We actually just in recent months, we were doing a complete re-edit, re-recording of a lot of our courses. We partially re-recorded and re-edited our beginner courses. Python 3 was one of the reasons. We also did it to update, we updated graphics and editing and so on. The other reason then for Python Advanced, we learned new things. We changed also the quality of things. We added new content. We had to switch from PySet 2 to PySet 6. So there's like, we always also try to keep everything like current because it's important to us. We don't want just to have some courses. We always want to have relevant courses. And for example, the stream, for example, gives us the opportunity also to try things out and, play with content. One of the reasons that I want to do the maybe strange menu video that we have here, this one, is because this is a problem that I have. Like, I created a Python for FreeS Max on week 7. We look into menus, but now this is obsolete because after 2024, 2025 now, the menus don't work anymore in 2025 plus because they have a new menu system. I was like, why not just, do a double thing on one side, do a free course and, let people know how the menus work now, and also have the opportunity to add to our masterclass so people are, have both options, how it worked before 2020, before 25, and how it works now in 25 basically. So yeah, there's a lot. It's very definitely a very, some of it maybe a little bit strange, but overall this is DaVinci Resolve just started randomly. I was like, what is going on? But that is like one of the things. So we will do maybe a few like, special cases, but we will cover a lot of things. So again, feel free to reach out if you have certain like streams you would like us to cover. Happy to have certain topics, we still do the monthly TD meetup. So this will be more kind of broader topics, but overall the rest will be, again, topics like about Python. We will probably do a Python for Houdini. We probably do all of the Python introductions. Again, I think it's just nice to have them on YouTube so people have at least access to the basic stuff. And if they want to find how to do the basic Houdini coding or Max coding or whatever, there is some video that can, give you an introduction into that. I think that is important also, and yeah, just kind of fun to play with this. But we also look into new things, probably like in Python for Unreal. Maybe I will do a Python for ShotGrid kind of also video where I experiment as I'm working for the Python for ShotGrid /flow/shotgun masterclass. That would be also kind of a way of like, let's do a drafty version here on stream, and then I can package it in a more precise version for the masterclass, for example. So I think that would be also a cool way to approach this. So yeah, just let me know if you have anything interesting that you would like me to cover. Happy to do that. As I said, we will do this every week, at least until April, and then when we arrive in April, we just have a look how it worked. How are you guys responding? Are you joining? Do you like the content? And if that's true, then we continue. But that's just like kind of an experiment that we want to try out. Yeah. So happy to have you. We do a 1 month break now, but afterwards, feel free to join us every week or at the topics that you like. Again, these are already scheduled. We will schedule things in the future already, so you will always see a bunch of episodes already scheduled for the future. So feel free to just click on them, like this one, and you can click on notification, for example. And for this one, feel free to subscribe. Always happy to have people that do that, because then you get the information. So happy to have you. And if you have any other questions, let me know. Any final questions before we wrap this up, our Python for Blender stream? Or is everything answered? Let's dive to the shrine. I think this is the way. This is the way we should approach this. Everything else clear. I think I saw a question that was far away. Someone asked something, I remember just kind of seeing it in the eye. Okay. No, if there's no question left, I would say hail the cube. Make sure, to pray before or every time you open Blender, just to make sure that everything is okay. Thank you everyone for joining. Luciano, thank you very much for recommending the Python Advanced. Feel free to join us. Our next Python cohorts, beginner and advanced, will start in January, but you can join anytime and get access to the information and be, start learning already. So feel free to join us. We are always happy to have it. We are very, kind of a group where you work with us. You're not just watching videos. It's not a Udemy courses. We are giving you feedback and live Q&A. So that's how we work at the end of the day. Okay, that means that is it from me. This is part 2 of our Python for Blender. Was really nice to have you guys also. And then what that means, we can close the book on that one. We did everything we wanted to achieve. And we checked all the boxes, which is great. And then we will see each other in 1 month for our first stream, before we dive in every Thursday to do a regular stream there. Thank you everyone, and I'll see you next on the 18th of December. Bye bye. This website is here to share my experience, to take you along with me, and to give you an opportunity for a great career. Here you can find my blog with exciting articles about the industry, great masterclasses, and personal coaching that will bring you to the next level. My YouTube channel handles topics about a career in the film and games industry, being a technical director, and professional scripter. I'm also hosting the 21 Artist Show, which is a visual podcast that inspires creatives to make meaningful content to pursue their passions. Finally, subscribe to my newsletter to get industry insights and updates to new content. That's it from me. See you on the next video.